November 20th, 1944, Hürtgen Forest, along the German border. The forest is already awake before dawn. Wind pushes through the splintered pines, dragging mist low across the frozen ground. Wet needles muffle footsteps, but nothing can hide the distant, steady thump of artillery. Far off, somewhere beyond the tree line, a German battery is firing. On a narrow fire break hacked through the woods, a small group of American soldiers crouch over a strange collection of gear. No rifles at the ready, no machine guns in sandbags. Instead, they have tripods, cable, bulky signal boxes, and a reel of wire that seems to run off endlessly into the darkness. They are not here to fire. They are here to listen. Sergeant Frank Red Malloy, his helmet band stuffed with cigarette packs and a stub of pencil, wipes the moisture from his field glasses. Behind him, half buried in wet earth and sandbags, sits a low metal cylinder the size of a helmet, wired to a junction box. 50 yards farther along the fire break, another, then another. A whole silent line of microphones hidden beneath the forest floor. "Batteries at it again," mutters Corporal Dixon, hunched over the plotting table. He squints at a thin strip of smoked paper feeding out of a recording drum, the stylus quivering with each distant concussion. Same rhythm as last night. You can hear it too. A distant, hollow boom, flattened by distance and the trees. Then another. The sound feels slow and heavy, like someone dropping stones into the fog. Malloy glances at his wristwatch. "Stand by. Next salvo. We get the fix." These men are part of a sound-ranging section of the U.S. Army artillery. They are invisible hunters, tracking German guns not by sight, but by the tiny differences in time it takes a sound wave to reach each buried microphone. Somewhere behind the front, a row of American guns is waiting for their call. Another German round thunders in the distance. Mark Dixon snaps. The stylus needles jump almost in unison on the instruments, each linked to a different microphone position along the line. The forest seems unchanged, the same gray light, the same dripping branches, the same cold air in your lungs. But inside the sound truck parked under the trees, time is being sliced into thousandths of a second. Technicians call out numbers, tight and fast. Station A, plus 3.2 Station C, plus 7.9 hands move across the plotting board, pencils scratching triangulations onto a gridded map of the German side. Every tiny delay in the arrival of the sound means distance. Every distance, when compared, means direction. Another boom, then another. The German battery is firing for effect now, throwing steel toward American positions deeper in the forest. Somewhere out there, infantrymen are hugging muddy foxholes, listening to shells rip through the treetops before bursting in lethal showers of wood and shrapnel. Here, inside the sound truck, it is strangely calm. "Got it," Dixon says, almost quietly. His pencil stops. On the transparent overlay above the map, a small cross has been drawn near a cluster of contour lines, a shallow rise just behind a patch of woods. Grid coordinates locked. Estimated error, less than 50 meters. Malloy snatches up the field telephone handset. Fire direction. This is Sound Ranger. Counter battery target. Hostile artillery. Grid follows. His voice becomes a staccato of letters and numbers. Coordinates stabbing through the static. On the other end, in a warm bunker that smells of coffee and cordite, American fire direction officers swing into motion. Slide rules, range tables, and firing charts come out. Gun crews, already half expecting the call, begin shifting their howitzers, ramming in fresh shells. Back in the German lines, the gunners keep working, confident in the concealment of their woods and camouflage nets. They have fired from this position before. It has taken the Americans hours, sometimes days, to find them. This time, The Americans are ready in minutes. On the plotting map in the sound truck, Malloy taps the tiny cross marking the German battery. "Let's see what you think of this one," he murmurs. A moment later, somewhere behind you, American guns begin to fire. The echoes of the American guns roll across the Hürtgen like thunder trapped under a low ceiling of cloud. For a heartbeat, there is only sound, deep and rolling, stacking over itself in the cold air. Then the shells arrive. On the German side of the line, in a small clearing hacked out of the trees, Feldwebel Karl Riedel is leaning over a map case on the hood of a mud-streaked truck. His battery has been firing steadily all morning, dropping shells into the maze of American foxholes dug into the forest. The men are relaxed in that strange way veteran gunners can be, moving through the steps of loading and laying the guns with practiced speed. Riedel hears the first incoming round as a rising shriek above the constant background of their own fire. His head snaps up. "Incoming! Deckung!" he shouts, already diving for the shallow slit trench beside the nearest gun. The American round slams into the tree line just short of the clearing. It does not need to hit the ground. It meets a thick trunk, the fuse triggers, and the shell detonates above the frozen soil. Splinters of steel and ragged wood scythe through the battery position. A loader at the third gun goes down screaming, clutching his leg. A signal cable jumps and falls, cut in 2 places. Before the echoes fade, more shells are coming. The American fire is tight. Rounds walk across the clearing in measured steps, searching for guns, trucks, anything that looks like a firing position. Men who have spent months learning to hide under camouflage nets and smoke feel an old confidence drop away in an instant. Someone found them far too fast. Riedel presses his face into the wet earth until the first storm of splinters passes, then pushes himself up, ears ringing. One of the guns has taken a direct hit at the muzzle. The barrel is peeled open like a crushed tube. The crew scattered. Another shell blasts into the edge of the ammunition pit, throwing boxes of propellant charges into the air like leaves. "Cease fire!" he yells, throat raw. "Prepare to displace. Schnell." No one argues. The crewmen who are still on their feet scramble to pull breech blocks, grab sights, anything they can carry that will be needed to set up again. A driver sprints for a half-buried truck, its engine cold. He twists the ignition, and the starter grinds slowly, stubborn in the freezing air, out beyond the German battery. Inside the American sound truck, Sergeant Malloy watches a new set of marks scratch across the smoked paper. The German guns tried to answer, managed a few more rounds, then faltered under the counterfire. "Looks like we hurt them," Dixon says quietly. Sound levels dropping, fewer reports. Malloy notes the times, the change in intensity. His hand rests on the map where the small cross marks the enemy battery location. The American guns are still firing, but now the salvo pattern begins to open up, spreading a curtain of high explosive over the whole grid square, finishing the job. Far forward, near the front line, an American infantry squad huddled in a muddy hole hears the shift. At first, the forest had screamed with incoming German shells, treetops exploding overhead, fragments hissing through the air. Then, within what feels like only a few minutes, the direction of the thunder changed. Private Leo Hernandez, helmet crooked and face caked with mud, dares to lift his head above the rim of the foxhole. Through gaps in the trees, he sees distant flashes on the horizon in the American rear. Then, a breath later, blossoms of black and brown smoke where the German guns had been pounding them. "About time they found those guns," his squad leader mutters. Hernandez shakes his head. "That was quick. They hardly had us bracketed before our boys were on them." He does not know about Malloy or Dixon, or the thin line of buried microphones stretching through the woods behind him. He only knows that the enemy guns, which had seemed untouchable for so long, are being smashed much faster than before. As if someone reached out through the fog and pointed a finger straight at them. In the German clearing, amid the splintered trunks and burning camouflage. Riedel finally hears an engine catch. The surviving guns are being limbered as fast as shaking hands can manage. He glances once toward the treetops where the American shells are ripping through bark and branches. "How did they find us so fast?" he growls, more to himself than anyone else. Before climbing onto the side of a gun carriage as it lurches into motion, behind him, another American salvo arrives, hammering the position they are struggling to abandon. As Riedel's battered battery lurches away through the trees, the Hürtgen closes in behind them, swallowing the wreckage and smoke. For the men riding the gun carriages, every route in the track feels like it could be the last jolt before a shell finds them. But the American fire gradually lengthens, groping after them, then falls back to churn the position they have already abandoned. Back on the American side, the forest seems strangely still between salvos. The steady patter of shattered bark and pine needles is the only reminder that, a few minutes earlier, hundreds of pounds of steel were flying in both directions. In the cramped sound truck, Malloy exhales and finally peels his headphones off one ear. The recording drums slow, the smoked paper ticking on a little longer before the motor is cut. The tiny, jagged lines traced on it are the only visible record of the fight they just directed. Dixon taps the paper gently. That was a full battery, at least 4 guns. Now they are either in pieces or on the move. "On the move is fine," Malloy replies. "Moving guns do not fire much." He steps out into the cold air, stretching his back, and you follow him into the murk of the trees. The camouflaged pits holding the microphones look like nothing more than patches of disturbed soil and leaves. A thin cable snakes from each one toward the truck, half buried, half just lying on the ground where roots refuse to cooperate. Far to the rear, the gun line is adjusting again. The counter-battery mission is winding down, and new fire orders are being prepared for infantry support. The artillery battalion commander studies his reports. Units at the front have started sending curious messages. The enemy barrages that used to last half an hour now seem to draw immediate punishment. Within the infantry regiment slogging through the Hürtgen, rumors start to circulate. Some say the Air Corps must have better spotter planes now. Others claim prisoners talked under interrogation and betrayed their own batteries. A few imagine some new radar magic. No one out here whispers about buried microphones and time measurements because almost no one knows. The sound ranging sections are small, technical, tucked into the artillery command structure. Their gear is fragile compared to a howitzer. Their work is quiet, done in the background, like a hand pointing from behind a curtain. Forward of Malloy's position, another German battery opens up later that afternoon. The rhythm is different. He can tell by ear before he has even put the headset back on. Fewer guns, faster firing, perhaps light howitzers or heavy mortars. "Stations! Listen up," he calls, ducking back into the truck. "New target. Log starts now." Again the drum begins to hum, the stylus resting over the fresh strip of smoked paper. Dixon hunches forward, pencil ready. The first distant boom rolls through the forest. Mark. On the chart, the cross of intersecting range lines begins to form. Each microphone position contributes a colored ray, drawn from the known location of that station toward the direction from which the sound must have come. The tiniest differences in arrival time are converted into distances with a practiced flick of the hand. Outside, this new German battery thinks it has the advantage. It has been silent all day, its barrels cold, its camouflage undisturbed. The crews have waited for this moment, believing that once they open up, they will have at least some precious time before American counterfire can react. Inside the truck, it takes less than the length of a cigarette for the pattern to emerge. "Got another one," Dixon says. He circles a point on the map, this one nearer to a crossroads marked on the German side. Looks like they are using the same routes, moving guns into old assembly areas, thinking we still need to register them with observation. Malloy nods. already reaching for the telephone. He knows the drill now. Each time the Germans think they have found a safe new firing point. The microphones listen. The lines converge, and another set of coordinates goes racing back to the guns. The invisible net is not in the sky or on the ground. It is in the air itself, in every pressure wave that leaves a barrel and rattles the trees. The Germans have no idea that every time they fire, the forest tells on them. By the third day, the pattern is impossible to ignore. For the German infantry clinging to their foxholes in the Hürtgen, it begins as a feeling, not a fact. Each time their own artillery opens fire, the response comes quicker. The first few salvos might land safely behind them, aimed at American reserves or suspected command posts. Then, almost before they have finished counting the blasts, the forest behind their line starts to erupt under American counterfire. In a dugout scraped into a slope above a muddy trek, a squad of German riflemen waits out yet another barrage. They can feel their own guns speaking far behind them, a steady rolling boom that has become background noise in this cursed forest. "Listen," says one private, eyes narrowed. "Our start, then theirs, always the same. Too quick," his sergeant grunts. "The Americans have plenty of guns. They do not waste time." "It is more than that," the private insists. "Before, when we were in France, it took them time to find our batteries. We would fire for an hour, maybe more. Here it is minutes." He lets the word hang. Minutes. A tree nearby explodes as an American shell detonates in its upper trunk, raining splinters and earth across the dugout entrance. The men flinch, pull their helmets down tighter, curse the forest, the war, the damp seeping into everything. Far behind them, in a timber-framed house pressed into service as a regimental command post. The same question is being asked with more formality. Maps are spread across a rough table. Battery positions are marked with small colored pins. Many of those pins have been moved in the last 48 hours, yanked from one sector and stabbed into another with growing frustration. Each time a new assemblage area is selected, American fire zeroes in far faster than expected. "It cannot be coincidence," says the artillery liaison officer, fingers stained with cigarette smoke. "They are either spotting the flashes, or they have some new sort of listening device." The regimental commander, a tired major with a bandage on his cheek from a near miss days before, shakes his head slowly. The weather over the forest has been terrible. Air observation is difficult. Flash spotting through these trees would be unreliable. "Then what?" the liaison demands. "We change firing positions. We move only at night. We camouflage everything. And still, within 5 minutes, the first American shells come in." He leans over the map, tracing with his finger from one crossed-out position to another. "It is as if they already know where we like to set up. As if they are waiting for us to speak so they can put a finger on the place and say there." On the American side, in a dimly lit artillery command dugout, officers are having a parallel conversation with a very different tone. Malloy stands near the back wall, helmet under his arm, while a captain from fire direction traces circles around the German front on a situation map. Colored grease pencil marks show recent counter-battery missions. Many of the targets are accompanied by short notes in neat handwriting. "Battery further fire impossible after 10 minutes. Ammunition dump hit. Movement observed on roads to rear. You are making believers out of people," the captain tells Malloy. Infantry reports say the enemy barrages are shorter and less accurate. Their gunners are firing and scooting, but they are not staying long enough to do real work. Malloy shrugs one shoulder. "They fire. The microphones hear them. We just turn that into a map reference. The guns do the rest." The captain taps one of the circles. "I do not care if you use magic. Sergeant, just keep doing it." Back at the sound-ranging line, Dixon and the others work in a routine that is rapidly becoming instinct. Check the microphones, test the cables, calibrate the recording drums. Each time the front reports incoming fire. They are ready. Within moments of the first German rounds, faint ripples in the air reach their buried instruments, are converted into scratches on smoked paper, are turned by quick minds into coordinates. For the German gunners, the effect is psychological as much as physical. They begin to watch the treetops above their own positions almost as nervously as they watch the range drums on their guns. Each time they open up, there is a silent count in the back of every mind. 1 minute, 2, 3. The forest listens with them, indifferent and patient. The Germans do not stay confused forever. Soldiers rarely do. By late November, captured documents and interrogation reports begin to filter through American headquarters. A few prisoners mention strange American units behind the lines, full of wires and instruments instead of rifles. Others talk about feeling as if every time their guns speak, American shells arrive as if waiting around the corner, somewhere inside a higher German command post. Someone writes a short note that will matter very much to men like Malloy and Dixon. Priority targets enemy sound locating units. The forest keeps that secret as well as all the others. But soon, the sound rangers feel the change. It begins on a night when the fog lies so thick between the pines that even the nearest trees are reduced to dark smudges. The sound truck squats under a camouflaged net, lights doused, its interior instruments glowing faintly in the dark. The microphone line has already been checked and tested. All is quiet except for an occasional pop of distant small arms fire. Malloy is halfway through a cigarette when the first German guns speak. The sound arrives muffled by the fog, but the instruments do not care. Pressure waves travel regardless of visibility. Stations. Stand by, he says. Sliding into his seat, Dixon leans forward, pencil poised. The recording drum starts to turn. Mark. The stylus needles jump. Another salvo, then another. The pattern is familiar now. So familiar that Dixon can almost feel where the lines will cross before he draws them. He bends over the map, hands steady, mind focused. Got you, he murmurs, circling a point near a bend in a stream. Malloy reaches for the telephone. He never finishes dialing. A sudden, violent roar tears through the forest, closer than any incoming they have heard in days. The truck rocks on its suspension. Men are thrown against equipment. Cables snap tight against their fastenings. Someone cries out. The first shell has landed near the microphone line, close enough that one of the buried pits collapses under the shock. Dirt and leaves spray across the firebrake, pattering against the side of the truck. Incoming! Incoming! Someone shouts. An unnecessary warning as another round screams in. This one hits closer. A section of the forest floor erupts just beyond the truck, flinging a tree stump like a thrown log. The stump slams into the truck's front fender, crumpling metal. Glass in one of the small windows explodes inward, showering the interior with shards. Malloy dives to the floor beside the plotting table, dragging Dixon down with him. The recording drum keeps turning, abandoned. Its paper now a mess of jagged lines as the microphones pick up the nearby detonations. They are shooting at us. Dixon gasps. Malloy's mind races, even as he presses himself flatter to the vibrating floor. The German battery was only just located. The data never went out. There is no way the enemy could be responding to their own fire so quickly. Then the thought hits like another shell. This fire is not an answer. It is a hunt. Someone has fed the Germans approximate locations of American sound-ranging units based on captured reports or analysis of counter-battery patterns. Somewhere behind the German lines. A staff officer has traced lines on a map and guessed where the American listeners must sit. Another shell lands behind the truck, ripping open the ground near 2 microphone pits. One of the cables whips into the air, severed. The sensitive buried microphones that have been quietly ruling the battlefield are suddenly just bits of destroyed metal and torn wire. Out. Out. Malloy roars. scrambling to his feet as the truck's engine coughs from the concussion. Grab what you can carry. Move it. The crew does not need to be told twice. They snatch up critical instruments, map cases, and the precious recorded papers already filled with enemy gun signatures. Non-essential gear is left behind. The forest has become too accurate a place for delicate equipment to linger under fire. They spill out into the darkness, crouch running toward a backup position planned days ago but never used. Behind them, the truck shudders again as a shell lands almost on top of the old microphone line. Flames lick at the camouflage netting for the first time. The sound rangers feel what the German gunners have felt for days, the sensation that someone unseen is listening for them, waiting to answer in steel. The new position is nothing more than a shallow fold in the ground beneath a stand of fir trees. But to Malloy it feels like a fortress, simply because the shells are falling somewhere else. The crew slumps behind a low rise, chests heaving, hands still clutching instruments and map cases. The glow of the burning truck flickers through the trunks behind them, pulsing with each distant blast. Dixon kneels in the cold needles, cradling the latest smoked paper roll like it is made of glass. In the dim glow of a shaded flashlight, the jagged lines look almost delicate, a narrow history of the day written in vibration and time. "You think they will do that again?" he asks quietly. Malloy studies the burning wreck in the distance, then the black sky beyond the branches. "If they think they have us pinned, they will keep trying." He lowers himself beside Dixon and taps the paper. "All the more reason this work matters. We hit their guns fast, they hit our ears fast. As long as we are still listening, we are winning that trade." At first light, the crew begins to rebuild. New microphone pits are dug into the cold earth, deeper this time, with more care taken to break up the outlines and bury the cables. The men move silently, focused, as if handling something sacred. Every small metal cylinder they lower into the ground is another point in the invisible web that surrounds the German guns. Later that morning, word filters back from the front. The counter-battery mission Malloy was beginning when the shells crashed onto the old position still went out, passed by another sound section farther along the line. The German battery they had almost finished locating took a hard pounding. "Seems they are learning we hear them," the captain from fire direction says when Malloy visits the command dugout with fresh charts. "But they have not yet learned how to stay silent." Malloy allows himself the faintest smile. "The day a gun crew forgets how to fire, we can all go home." Across the forest, Riedel and what remains of his original battery have been folded into another unit. The guns are fewer, the faces around him different, but the fear is the same. Each fire mission now begins with a whispered argument among the men. How many salvos? How long before the American reply? Whether they should even fire at all? On this day, standing by a gun that has already seen too many positions, Riedel watches the timer on his wristwatch more than he watches the gun layers. First salvo, he notes, he waits. The shells shriek away into the trees, bound for American trenches he cannot see. 1 minute, 2, 3, the answer comes right on schedule. The earth jumps under his boots as American shells crash into the woods behind him, searching for the gun flash and the sound signature that the microphones have already captured. He swears under his breath. "They are waiting for us. Every time," one of the younger gunners, face pale beneath the grime, glances toward the rear. How do they know? Riedel has heard the rumors now, passed like contraband in letters and field reports. Strange American units full of wires and listening drums. Instruments that can hear a gun and say where it lives. They listen, he says finally. Eyes on the dark tree line. And their guns trust what they hear. Back at the American sound line, another roll of smoked paper is labeled dated and stowed. It joins a growing stack, each one a ghost image of thunder in the forest. To someone untrained, they look like meaningless scratches. To men like Malloy and Dixon, they are maps of advantage, records of how quickly their side has learned to answer. The battle for the Hürtgen will crawl on, ugly and slow. Men will die more often from trees and mud than from any clever instrument. Yet among the countless small struggles in those woods, a pattern has been set. Fire from the German side, and within minutes, the forest answers from the American guns, guided by ears buried in the soil. No flash of light to give them away, no aircraft circling above with binoculars. Only the simple fact that sound takes time to travel, and that someone cared enough to measure that time with precision and nerve under fire. For the infantrymen up front, it becomes one of those quiet miracles they hardly question. The enemy starts a barrage, and shortly after, the sky behind the enemy lines blossoms with their own destruction. For the sound rangers, it is work done in cramped trucks and muddy pits, plotting invisible paths through air that trembles with every blast. They will not be remembered like the men who charged bunkers or raised flags. But for a few bitter weeks in the Hürtgen, they turned the forest itself into a weapon. Every echo had a source, every source had a place, and every place, once found, could be silenced.